player was caught on camera cheating live at the World Championships of Pokemon over the weekend in Honolulu. The reason I found this cheat so interesting, and I'll go through it a bit more in more detail in a moment and replay this clip a couple of times, is that I missed it on the first 2 watches. It took me a 3rd watch to actually catch it. And then when I posted it to Twitter, there were people referencing the fact that they weren't sure what was happening, that they thought it was something to do with graveyard order. I'll go through all of it and more, and I also want to talk about a little bit of the reaction to it, the idea that every card gamer is cheating and all card games is rampant cheating, which is a common thread you see whenever any of these things come up. And this is not me dunking directly on Pokemon either. Don't forget that Yuta Watanabe was disqualified during a Mythic Championship. Was that what they were called at the time? Anyway, our equivalent, the Pro Tour for Magic the Gathering. If you want to see more about his cheating, which was marked cards, which is something I'm going to talk a little bit about in this video, I've got a whole video on his cheat and other big cheats in Magic. All that and more in today's video, but first, a jump scare of a sponsor. PleasantKenobi.com gives you 5% off your order when you're buying singles or sealed product, which is Magic and Pokemon actually. So if you've come here and you're not a Magic fan, you just stumbled across this video, you can use the code Kenobi to check out a 5% off your order and to help support the show. So firstly, let's go into the cheat and then unpack why I think it's at least mildly interesting, both in the form of the cheat itself and it being caught on camera and being at a massive event. Let's play it fully here. The sound doesn't really matter, so I'm going to talk over it. Can you spot the cheat on this second viewing in this video? Our person in question picks up their trash pile, their discard pile, if you will, looks through it, puts it back down, flicks it, adjusts glasses, and we move on. What's happening? Oh, they touched their hand a little bit. Oh, did you see it? Did you see it? Let's go through it one more time and I'll slow it down and observe it for you. They look at their hand and they look at their trash pile or graveyard to a Magic player. They fan it and oh, did you spot it? There's a card in their hand. Let's go back again. There is a card from their graveyard, patted into their hand, palmed, and under the table. Now watch as they're going to pick up their hand. They're going to put a card from under the table, the one taken from the trash pile, graveyard, into their hand. Are you ready? Oh, there it is. But they're talking to their opponent the whole time. They're talking a way that you can put their hand gently to the table as they talk and cover their face with their other hand as a little bit of a gesture here. You can see it. It's kind of a thing to distract the eye. And you've got to bear in mind as well, as they're palming the hand or the card to the bottom of the bottom of the table onto their leg, they also do a thing where they place the graveyard down, they tap it, and they do a little bit of a nice little flick. Oh yeah, baby. I love flicking my cards as much as the next person, but I'm not using it usually to distract from the fact that I'm palming cards from my graveyard onto my leg and then into my hand. So first up, I found it interesting that I missed it. Some people said that it was a very bad cheat and a very obvious cheat, but I don't think it was. I think palming cards out of your graveyard and into your hand is actually a lot more difficult than people first think. I'm not giving this person credit. This player's name, by the way, is Eduardo Ruiz, who's been disqualified in round 5 as of the original poster of this video, adding up an update to what happened. And they've also been disqualified and they've been kicked from their team of Apex Predators from El Calabozo Collectibles as well. They've lost their team. And good fucking riddance. But the point I was getting at is that I don't think it's that easy to spot if you're not looking for it. So it does beg the question, how often have you been cheating in a game of Magic or Pokemon where you haven't noticed your opponent is doing this sort of thing? It looked practiced, if I'm honest. I mean, there's a lot of conjecture here and we're just throwing things out and you can't prove any of this stuff, so I'm not trying to create like a public tribunal here, but to me that looked at least mildly practiced. I'm assuming this is not his first palming of a card into his hand. The other interesting point to all this is that this is a professor's mat. To Magic players who are watching, that means judges. This is a judge's play mat. I don't know if the player in question was a judge / professor, you know, someone who moderates the rules for the local events, but that is suggested by the mat, right? To be fair, I own a Pro Tour mat. I think I might own a judge's mat or two as well, where I've traded for them, bought them, and gifted them or whatever. So it doesn't mean you are necessarily in that role if you own those things, but to be fair, I wouldn't play with a judge's mat or a Pro Tour mat anywhere but a casual friend's house game. I wouldn't play them at the actual Pro Tour or elsewhere to fake my accolades or qualifications. So yeah, bit of an ick. But on top of that, the palming of cards into your hand and hiding them on the table and adding them to your hand is such a fucked up cheat. What I mean by that is that it is a messy cheat that can be caught very easily. I've covered cheats on the channel before in other videos that'll be linked in the description and in the cards of this video. For example, Watanabe famously had marked cards, so when he was shuffling his deck, he could see by the corners where certain cards in his deck were. The other prominent one in recent time in Magic has been shuffle cheating, where if you get a glance at the cards in your opponent's deck as you're shuffling, not your own, you can try and shuffle the cards that you you're happy for them to draw, that they don't want to draw to the top as you go, because people are a little more lenient when you're handling other people's decks than your own, because people aren't expecting you to shuffle cheat other people's decks. It's clever in some ways, if incredibly scummy. But in this case, you're removing a card from the graveyard, which your opponent can look at any time, or trash pile if you're a Pokemon player. They can look at it at any time to assess what you've had in the past, see if there's 2 of your 3 copies of a spell. It's 3 ofs in Pokemon, I believe. And thus, if you've got one of those cards back in your hand suddenly and your opponent checks your graveyard, it's like, where did that crushing blow or whatever the hell it's called, the mallet that's popular right now, where did that go? You're fucked. You're like, I don't know, it's somehow magically back in my hand. On top of that, the size of the trash pile can be checked at any time as well. Just the number of cards in hand is a thing that I often ask my opponents during rounds of Magic. It is wild how many hurdles you are setting up for yourself to stumble over. Alas, none of those caught them. It was actually just a person watching from the sidelines recording. According to their translated tweets around this topic, Twitter user Asagi07214545, whose tweet has now got 2.5 thousand likes and 1.7 million views, has gone quite viral on the card game social media spheres. Either way, they mentioned that they saw the player was acting and maneuvering their cards and hands quite weirdly, so decided to film from the sidelines. What you've got to keep in mind is that much like in Magic the Gathering, you can't interrupt people during their games at comp REL or competitive level or whatever the Pokemon equivalent is. The rules actually say that you shouldn't have any outside influence. Thus, recording like this and taking it to a judge or event staff is probably your best way of showing someone's cheating, as opposed to shouting at the game from the sidelines. That'll cause more problems. So the filming actually kind of works. Yes, there's a question around filming people without consent, but to be honest, you're playing in a World Championship or a Pro Tour or whatever, you're probably up for getting filmed by somebody involved with the game in terms of social media content creation or the company producing the production. And by the way, the Pokemon World production is of such a high quality. I mean, the Magic ones are pretty good for Pro Tours now, but this is real good. Massive congratulations to Fernando Cifuentes, who won the event in the Masters category and became the first Pokemon Master in Chile. Amazing. And also I watched a bit of the finals. It was actually just generally quite interesting and thrilling match. And the audience cheered and sighed collectively when cards didn't come up heads or tails on a 50-50 chance on the randomized cards. And I thought that was awesome. I loved hearing that as someone watching it from, my office. Cool spectator sport there. And then we get on to the conversation around the reaction. I had one person who responded to my tweet and quickly delete it when I told them they were being a fucking idiot. But they responded saying that this cheating player must have been a Magic player. Are you watching the video, my friend? They're playing Pokemon. They might play Magic, they might not, but they're definitely a Pokemon player. It reeked of that sort of copium. Oh, they can't possibly be into the game that I'm into. I think saying that one card game has more cheaters than others is largely completely fucking stupid. There was, of course, some systems that might have certain elements to the board set that allows for obfuscation or cheating easier. Of course there. But the idea that human beings playing for prizes might cheat more if they're playing with, cutesy little animals, although Magic's got that now, but whatever, but over space wizards or whatever, it's just nonsense. People will cheat if given the opportunity. That's just a unfortunate part of human nature. It really comes down to making sure we catch those people and punish them accordingly. I don't know what this person's ban or suspension is going to be, but I can probably guess it's not long enough. That's a common thread with Magic the Gathering and other card games when it comes to dealing with cheaters. Bear in mind the prize pool for first place for this event was $50,000. But a lot of money on the line, so cheating should be taken very seriously at this. But the palm in the card thing is a cheat that I just don't think happens much in Magic because of all the known information, the conversations that we have at Comp REL about how many cards in your hand, looking at graveyards and similar. Of course, it probably does happen in places. There is one prominent example of this that I remember. There was a player, something Spec, I think. I probably should have looked that up, but I'm not here to name and shame and shit. But there was a big controversy online where lots of people started tweeting about it during, I think it was Dragons era, Modern. Either way, their amulet deck was popping off. Every game, they were turn 1, amulet off a Simian Spirit Guide, land drop, untap it, player, explore, another land drop, a Zeusa, and just nonsense rolling stuff to have insane first turns with a deck. Turns out they're presenting 53 cards to the opponent and have the 7 best cards, their opening hand that they plan to play with, on their lap or in their pocket. Yes, this is a real thing. Yes, that person was disqualified and banned for some amount of years. How long? I don't know. Someone in the comment section can remind me of how long it was. The point of the anecdote that I'm pulling from memory is that palming cards does exist. I just think it's a much rarer instance. This one was so audacious. I did find this tweet. Patrick Sullivan, one of the greatest commentators on this game that we love, said presenting 53 cards and palming 7 is some cartoon supervillain shit. And it is, because it's just so dumb. Like if your opponent countered your deck or caught you swapping the hand that you draw in front of them, I don't even know how they achieved that effect of having a different, I guess they draw 7, put it into the hand, then swap it for another 7. So the deck is never ever 53 cards. That you draw this new 7 that disappears and you keep the old, fuck knows. It's a terrible cheat, and I'm glad they got fucking found out. It's funny because Amulet Titan is such a bullshit deck anyway. The moment you cheat, it just pushes it into overdrive, right? But the idea that some card games are more cheaty than others is just nonsense. It's very much tribalism. It's very much people trying to bang their fist to their chest and saying, not in my card game, it's all of you losers playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering. You're the cheaters. Even when the person cheating is literally cheating in your card game right now on social media and you saw it. But on top of that, there's this pervading wisdom, and I use that word very ironically, by a load of content creators. I watched a video on this morning just to see like what the Pokemon world was reacting to it like. And this video was just someone going on and on and on about how every single person competing in the card game and the video game at Worlds, because Pokemon Worlds is the video games and the card games, but all of them are cheaters and pieces of shit, which is a massively bold claim. And this is a thing you see quite a bit among more casual crowds and more casual commentators, if you will. I'm pretty casual. I hardly competed in the past. I hardly compete now. But I also have a lot of respect for people that do compete and are good at card games because there's a lot of skill that goes into them. There's a reason beyond the supposed cheating that certain players rise to the top every time. But to say that everyone is cheating is unlikely, shall we say. It's very, very unlikely that it would be broken wide open if there's just cheating all the time. Why don't we see more people get caught more often if there's that much cheating on the go? We have judges and professors watching games. We have things filmed and streamed all the time. There's a cheating controversy like every couple of weeks, sure, but why is there not one every weekend or multiple every weekend? It doesn't quite add up. It's that old thing that like if conspiracy theories were real, someone would talk about how the moon landing wasn't real and they were involved in the making of that flag or the fake landing, right? Because no one can keep fucking secrets. Everything gets out there eventually, especially when it comes to like large bodies of people, governments and huge player base. But the whole like, well, everyone else is cheating while I sit at home and don't compete, it smacks, it absolutely stinks of you being fucking shit and needing to get good. I've wanted to say this in a video for a while, and it's just never really fit anywhere, so this is the one for it. I think that everybody cheats at competitive level in games like Warhammer, Magic, Pokemon, or whatever. That is the people who just can't compete because they're not good enough. And their confidence level is low too, and they struggle to compete because they don't want to look like a fool. Sometimes it's people who are in a position like myself where talking about the game is important and they view a competitive record as important to justifying their discussion and arguments about the game, where I don't give a shit. I'm for consumer rights and the history of the game as much as I am for the playing it. But those people want to make out that the reason they don't compete is that everyone else is cheating. But they don't stand a chance in the first place, not because they can't get there, not that they can admit an inadequacy or a lack of skill on their part or a lack of effort. Sometimes it's just fucking laziness to get to a base level of competing, right? Instead, it's to accuse everyone else of cheating. And this happens every single time a high-profile cheat is revealed, or in this case, less high-profile and more just mimetic and viral because it's so pseudo-blatant on a side table at a world tour or world championship or pro tour. So the next time someone at your store says that all pro players cheat, don't say anything to them. Just smile to yourself and think about this video. Don't berate them, don't argue with them, because those people are probably a lost fucking cause already. Just maybe even just smirk. Smirk like a shit-eating grin, and imagine me saying, get good, you fucking scrub. And that's the news, that's the tea about players getting caught at the World Championships of Pokemon. I think I saw some other headlines about players getting disqualified at nationals and shit, but as far as I understand it, this might be the only big DQ that's like public or being talked about publicly about this particular tournament. And most tournaments have a DQ here and there, even through like misunderstandings and stuff that ended up like being inadvertent cheating. That can be a thing, right? Cheating does require intent, I believe, but sometimes people can just like, you know, misrepresent board states in a way that advantages them multiple times over and over, and a pattern forms even if they're just getting things wrong. It can happen. That's probably a more complicated video for another time. Thanks for watching. Let me know anything in the comment section below about the cheat and the whole topic of cheating and if everybody's cheating, all that shit, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.